Hi, I'm Lorna, coming to you from my studio, The Nest, in Hampshire, in England. Stem stitch is one of the basic stitches that you learn when you first start embroidery. I'm going to show you today how to achieve a lovely, neat, straight line with a twisted rope-like effect. You'll notice I've put a knot into the end of the thread, so I'm going to begin with a waist knot, which is one of the methods that you can use to start an embroidery stitch with. Take my needle from the top of the fabric through to the back, so the knot lies on the surface. I then come up somewhere near the end on that line, and I just do 2 tiny little back stitches that you won't pick up. I've drawn a line using a heat-soluble Friction pen, so it's easy for you to see. Now there are a number of ways of doing stem stitch. I'm working on a frame, so my embroidery hoop is in an actual frame on a stand, so I've got both hands free with which to work. So bring your needle up at the top end. Now I'm going to be doing it obviously with my right hand to start, and a large number of stitches are worked from the left to the right, and stem stitch is one of them. So I would come up at the end of the line, pick up a small bit of fabric. Now this is what we call the scoop method. So I'm picking it up in one fell swoop. I'm virtually halfway back in the distance between where I came up and where I went down. So I execute the stitch, bring it down to the bottom, and that's important that it always stays at the bottom of the line. That is called stem stitch. If you have it at the top above your work, it's called outline stitch, and it has a slightly different effect. Right, so for my next one, I pick up a small scoop again, and I'm coming back up at the base of the previous stitch. So in other words, it's still halfway along. So small stitch, scoop, and I come up at the base of the previous stitch. Now the smaller and the finer you make this, the neater it will be. I was first taught this when I was about 8 or 9 years of age by the nuns, and we had to pick up 2 strands of fabric, and that was it. So I've sort of more or less stayed with that. So as I said, this is called the scoop method. Now I'm going to change the method, so I'll just do this last one. As you can see, it's not always easy with the scoop to get it exactly where you want it. With the two-handed method, I'm now going to take my needle down with my right hand, or push it down with my left hand. My right hand is underneath the frame, and I'm going to do it in 2 steps. So I'll come back at the base of the previous stitch, use my left hand, and go down into the fabric. So I've still got the same little stitch as I did with the scoop, and then I come back up at the base of the stitch using my right hand. And so I proceed right through to the end of the stem. Now you'll notice when I pull my thread, I pull it in the direction in which it flows, so that away. Don't pull that away. Pull that away, and then you get a neat stitch lying on the top. So I'm going to proceed now just to finish that. I keep this in a straight line. I know some of the books show you to do the stitch at an angle. So if you want to have a very slight angle, it would literally be the width of your pencil line or your Friction pen line. No broader than that. Otherwise you just get parallel sleepers. If I was doing it with my left hand, I'd be working the other way around, which I'll demonstrate just briefly to start. There's no difference at all in the stitch, the execution, just different hand use. And I'll take the last one down to the back and end off neatly in the back if I'm finishing off there. So simply like that, and you've got a lovely straight line with a rope-like effect. Now you'll notice I've drawn a line to form a square. A lot of times I get asked the question, how do you turn a corner? So I previously finished off there at the bottom end. So all I do now is come up a stitch length away from the end. And I bring my thread towards the end, go into the hole where you finish the first line, and then come back up halfway along the stitch. And I would just carry on as I was doing previously, coming back to the base of the previous stitch. I think I'm slightly squiffy there, but you get the idea of what I've done. And that gives you a very sharp, neat corner. When you're working on a curve, you want the thread to always lie on the outside edge. So if you were right-handed, you would start at the top, at this end of the curve, and work with your thread in the outside edge all the way to that end. If you were left-handed, you would start there, and you would work all the way around this way. So I'm just going to finish that off now. And I'm going to come back down to the second line that I drew, just to show the left-hand method of doing the stitch. So it would be exactly the same, but I'm now in with my left hand, so I'm inserting the needle. I'm tending to work with my right hand underneath, but if you were left-handed, you would be working with your left hand underneath and your right hand on top. So thread always below, go into the fabric, and back to the base of the previous hole. So again, you can see I get the exact same neat stitch. Work with whichever hand you want on top and one on the bottom. If you were doing the scoop method, which I'm going to find quite difficult being right-handed, but I would then be picking up, I'm just going to do that so I can show you. So I would be scooping that way and pulling it that way if I was scooping. So pull the thread in the correct direction, take it back down to the bottom, trap, and then scoop again. Next time I will deal with whipping or overcasting the stem stitch. Enjoy your stitching.